and he was telling... Now, still to come on today's Global, we'll have the latest on the UK's Brexit struggle, with MPs putting forward their widely varying wish list for what happens next. Welcome back. Now, Afghan officials say at least 65 security personnel died in that Taliban attack on an intelligence base on Monday. More than 40 others were wounded in the assault on the National Security Directorate south of the capital, Kabul. The attack happened on the same day that the Taliban and US officials began the latest round of peace talks in Qatar. Shoaib Sharifi reports now from Kabul.
24 hours after the brazen attack on Afghanistan's primary intelligence agency, the NDS, security staff surveyed the damage. They have lost dozens of colleagues, killed when a suicide bomber rammed a vehicle laden with explosives through a military checkpoint before blowing it up. Gunmen also opened fire, so troops are taking no chances today. Local residents who heard the explosion ran for their lives.
I
fell to the floor and I saw black smoke. I ran home to survive. My windows were broken and my relatives at home were injured. The highway was blocked by security forces.
The number of casualties were really high. The number of ambulances had blocked the roads. Everyone witnessed how big and dangerous this incident was.
It's another deadly attack by the Taliban, which has gained increasing power and reach since foreign combat troops left Afghanistan in 2014. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, there were conflicting reports of how many had died. It was feared 12 had been killed, but Afghan officials confirm now that the numbers have risen sharply to over 40. Some sources say it could rise to more than 100. The attack came on the same day that Taliban and US officials held the latest round of peace talks in Doha, Qatar. It's supposed to be aimed at ending the 17-year war, but as Afghan police and army members die in record numbers, the end seems a long way off. Shoaib Sharifi, BBC News, Kabul.
Now, British MPs opposed to Theresa May's withdrawal deal with the European Union have been putting forward their own Brexit proposals. MPs are to vote again on Theresa May's plans in a week's time. Let's speak to the chief UK political correspondent Vicky Young, who's there at Westminster for us. And Vicky, various amendments are now down. Which pose the greatest threat to the Prime Minister?
Well, there's certainly a theme around them. They're coming from all parts of the House of Commons, all the different parties, government as well as opposition parties. But a general theme is that they're trying to rule out the UK leaving the EU without a deal. So ruling out a no-deal scenario. Now, that is pretty difficult to achieve because it is the default legal position still that on March the 29th, if no deal has gone through Parliament, the UK leaves without a deal. So they're trying to come up with some pretty complicated parliamentary ways of trying to stop it. Now, probably the most ambitious one is trying to really take over what happens in the House of Commons. Normally, the government would decide what legislation goes down, how the votes proceed. They're in charge of all of that. What some MPs are trying to do is to say, no, actually, for at least one day, if not longer, MPs are going to decide what to do. And we're going to put down this bill, which is going to tell the Prime Minister that if she hasn't got a deal, then she must go and ask for an extension of Article 50. So the UK would not be leaving at the end of March. They wouldn't leave till the end of 2019. So that's the most ambitious one. It has got cross-party support. It could well go through, but it really would be highly unusual. So next Tuesday could be a very difficult moment for the government. Worth saying, though, that at this point, whatever goes through, if anything goes through, is not legally binding, but the political pressure on the Prime Minister to rule out a no deal would certainly be mounting.
So crunch time on all of those things you just took us through briefly, Vicky, in terms of whether it'll be a free vote. A lot of attention about that because that potentially could be critical.
Yeah, that's right. There are some cabinet ministers even saying to the Prime Minister, look, this is such an important issue, and there are cabinet ministers and other ministers who feel very, very strongly. They too want to vote in order to rule out a no-deal scenario. They're saying, some of them, that they would resign from their jobs, from their posts in order to do that. So they're urging the Prime Minister to say, look, it can be a free vote, which means they can vote according to their own conscience, not according to what the party leader tells them to do. Now, we're not there yet, but it could be a way of Theresa May avoiding mass resignations, but it would probably also mean that she has to then rule out a no-deal scenario. And she, I think, thinks that is still quite useful when it comes to negotiations with the EU.
Well, the pressure continues to build. Vicky Young, thanks very much for that. Thank you. Now, the Indian cricket captain Virat Kohli has become the first player to win all 3 top awards of the International Cricket Council. The sports world governing body said Kohli had been named Cricketer of the Year, as well as being voted Best Test and One-Day International Player. Well, earlier I spoke to a former teammate, Mohammad Kaif, and asked him what makes Kohli so special.
Amazing consistency and hunger to score runs. Virat Kohli is born to score runs. And of course, his dream is coming true. All the fans, all the emotions. It's a big country, India. We've got people who love to watch Virat Kohli play, and this guy's got the amazing ability to score runs all the time. And the biggest test was, last time he had won the ODI ICC best player of the award, but this time it was a test match. ICC test.
Yeah, I mean, he won all 3, just sort of all 3 clean sweep. I mean, you've played with him. Why is he so good?
Like I said, amazing consistency to score runs all the time, and execution of plan when he goes out there to bat in the match. He's got the bowlers is bowling at him 145 km per hour, but he's got the millisecond you get to react, but he's got the amazing ability to adapt the reaction time and score runs. He's got hunger, he's got the ability to score runs. And see, Virat Kohli he got the big players in India, likes of Sachin, Dravid, but somehow Virat Kohli is making the mark at the international level. Is in my mind, we're touring to England, UK recently, against the likes of Anderson, Broad in a swimming condition.
Mohammad Kaif on the great Virat Kohli. Well, I'll be back in our next edition, the very latest on the partial US government shutdown now into its 2nd month. Also here in the next few minutes in Focus on Africa, we'll look at the crisis in Zimbabwe, where President Mnangagwa has promised to investigate claims of misconduct by his own security forces. That's here in just a moment.